Imagine walking out of a grocery store with 4 bags of groceries, dropping one in the parking lot, and just not bothering to pick it up. That's essentially what we're doing. That's a quote from Dana Gunders from the film Just Eat It. Can you imagine that? Watching every single person walk out of a grocery store, drop one of their 4 bags that are full of groceries, and just not bothering to pick it up. That's a lot of waste of food and money, right? So we produce enough food to feed the entire world, but somehow there are still billions of people that are starving every single day. Global food waste is a large issue that we are struggling to solve, and we're struggling to figure out where to start and even what choices we can make that will make a significant impact on our people and our planet. So what food gets wasted? Okay, be prepared. These are going to be a lot of numbers that I'm throwing at you guys, okay? So 45% of all fruits and veggies, 35% of fish and seafood, 30% of cereals, and 20% of meats and dairies. 10 million tons are being wasted at farms, and 25 million tons are being wasted at restaurants, cafeterias, and supermarkets. Currently, food is the #1 thing in our landfills, and 55 million tons of it is avoidable. That is nearly 29% of the food produced every year. The United States is throwing away approximately 1/3 of all of the food that we produce every year, and that's equivalent to 133 billion pounds of our food. So when it comes to negative impacts on the environment, this wasted food can cause a lot of damage. If wasted food was a country, it would be the 3rd largest producer of carbon dioxide in the entire world after China and the United States. A study was done by Kumar Venkat, and it was published in the Journal on Food System Dynamics, and it discovered that 113 million metric tons of greenhouse gas is emitted annually just from food waste. So there are currently 49 million Americans that are struggling to put food on their table every day. 1 in 6 people in America are facing hunger. These are the cold hard facts, and something must be done for those who are starving. $165 billion worth of food is being thrown out every year in the United States. So, let's see. And we can feed half of that 49 million people with all of that food that we're throwing out. So $165 billion can go a really long way, so why are we throwing it all in the trash? A 2011 report estimated that 20% of the initial food production is lost due to not meeting the grading requirements in the United States, Europe, Oceania, and Latin America. This means that a large amount of food that is produced isn't even making it into our grocery stores. But producing food uses a lot of resources. Agriculture uses 70% of the world's fresh water. And so if we're throwing out all this food, this means that 1/4 of our fresh water can be accounted for in food waste. Think about how important that fresh water is and how climate change is constantly making that fresh water run out. That means that it's running out for the use of our current and our future generations. Now that we've talked about food waste in general, let's talk about our grocery stores. We don't allow nearly half of the produce that we make into our grocery stores. Let me say that one more time so it sinks in. We don't allow nearly half of the food that we produce into our grocery stores. The reason behind this is very simple. They're not considered pretty enough to be sold. As humans, aesthetics seem to be a really important factor in our lives. We want the most beautiful things. We want to find the cutest pet in the shelter, we want to date that person that catches our eye the most, and we want to be seen in the hottest trends of the year. But what is the lesson that we've learned since we were children? We've heard it since we were kids. Appearances shouldn't matter. It's what's on the inside that counts. We were taught to focus on who that person is and find the beauty that lies within them. And that lesson should ring true for our food as well. Just because food is ugly, it doesn't mean that it's inedible. Today we'll be talking about our Pretty on the Inside initiative and how grocery stores can make strides in the elimination of global food waste. Grocery stores make up 10% or 13 billion pounds of the United States food waste. This can be attributed to the way that grocery stores structure their food model. With traditional business model, If grocery stores have a low amount of waste, this means that they're not producing enough food, and therefore their customers are suffering from lack of selection. The National Resources Defense Council also conducted a study that highlights many other reasons why there's so much waste. These reasons are overstocking displays. We're expecting perfect appearances in cosmetics, sell-by and use-by dates, and damaged goods, unpopular items, and outdated promotional items. So if we know what's causing this issue, why don't we fix it? Not a significant amount of people care enough to solve this issue, but France did. So France noticed this was an issue, and they decided to intervene with new laws. A new law was passed in 2016 that states if any grocery store throws out food that could have been donated to a charity, they will be fined what is equal to $4,500 for each infraction. It's not just for a year, it's for every single infraction that they are caught not donating food to charities. If the United States was to implement this law, it could drastically decrease the amount of food waste, but it could take many years for us to successfully implement a law like this. And we're going to play a video on how France is making strides in this department.
Yep, so thank you, Michaela, for sharing the environmental impacts of food waste, especially in grocery stores. We're just going to hop right into the economic impacts. So an article in the New York Times stated that in the first half of 2013, a British supermarket called Tesco wasted over 25,800 tons of their own food. That was 0.87% of their sales volume for just the first half of the year alone. That number seems small, but it really starts to add up when you consider the fact that almost every supermarket around the world is wasting just as much, if not more food. So grocery stores could be making more money, and the environment could benefit if we decrease food waste and if it was sold and not thrown out. And then, so shopping smart and not wasting food bought at grocery stores can also save the consumer a lot of money. We checked out a documentary, Just Eat It, a food waste story, and it follows a couple, Grant Baldwin and Jen Russmeyer, who has vowed to only eat wasted food over the next 6 months. So they would only go to grocery stores, they would only go to grocery stores where the food couldn't be sold. For example, ugly bananas and cartons of eggs that had a cracked egg or two. And that's all they would eat. They would also go in dumpsters, much like the video, and find unopened, still sealed cans of food. Over the 6 months, they only spent $200 on groceries alone. Can you imagine spending only $200 on groceries? I spend $100 every 2 weeks. It's ridiculous. But so they estimated they had saved over $200,000 worth of food over the 6 months just from eating ugly food that no one wanted to sell, that no one wanted to have, and it was pretty remarkable. So unfortunately, a lot of ugly food doesn't even get to make it into the grocery stores. In an interview with an NPR station called The Salt, Grant Baldwin from the Just Eat It documentary mentioned that he had went and visited a peach farmer over in California, and he said that they throw out anywhere from 30 to 70% of their peaches just because of cosmetic issues alone. And this hurts farmers all over the world financially, and it doesn't even give consumers the opportunity to buy this ugly food. So what are grocery stores doing now? The United Nations' lofty objective was by 2030 they want to have per capita global food waste at the retail and consumer level and reduce food losses along production and supply chains, including post-harvest losses. The United States Department of Agriculture shortly adopted this initiative, making it the first ever national food waste reduction goal. The first initiative taken by the USDA was an application called FoodKeeper. This app helps you with storing and keeping food that you might not be knowledgeable about. So Joanne Birkenkamp, an advocate from the NRDC, said many consumers don't feel knowledgeable about storing their food properly at home, and that drives a lot of consumer level waste. The FoodKeeper app is something people can use to answer simple questions. How do I properly store bananas or oranges or lettuce? And it includes information about storage temperatures and date labeling and expiration dates. So moving on, we look at Ben Simon, possibly a modern day hunger movement hero. Ben Simon was an undergrad student at the University of Maryland a couple years ago, and him and his friends were walking through the dining halls and they noticed all the food that was piling up in the trash cans. So they wanted to make a difference. They wanted to be the change. They went on to start a nonprofit food donation program where they would take the food and donate it to soup kitchens and other agencies. And over the next couple months, they went on to save over 1.5 million pounds of food. Right now, it is the largest student movement against hunger with 198 chapters in over 44 states across the country. Right now, Simon is currently living in California where he started his own company. It's called Imperfect Produce. And at Imperfect Produce, they go and they buy ugly foods from producers and farmers that couldn't normally be sold at grocery stores and other retailers. And they flip it for a really discounted price. And over the first month, so it started in 2015, and over the first month, they sold over 70,000 pounds of this ugly food to over 10,000 people in the Bay Area. And it's really just been improving from there on out. And then we got another little video for you. Oh, never mind. We're going to skip that. All right. So what can grocery stores do now? Stop stocking in abundance to make displays look full and overflowing. Grocery stores would not have to buy such a large amount of product if they didn't feel the need to please the eyes of their consumers. Most of this food expires because there is not enough consumers to buy the food. They literally stock it so full. So one of our suggestions is they can place mirrors over their product to make the illusion that there is more product. Second, they can remove the sell-by date and possibly the use-by date if they want to. Many consumers see the sell-by date and they get confused and they don't know what to do about it. I know whenever I go to the grocery store, I need a gallon of milk, I definitely do the later sell-by date just because I figure, oh, like maybe it'll expire later, maybe it won't. But then I go in my fridge a week later and find milk that's been expired for a week and I still drink it and I still survive. So, it's fine. But right now, the European Union is tossing around the idea of removing this sell-by date and just leaving on the expiration dates. And they're also suggesting making like a national reduction of food prices the closer the expiration dates get closer. And with that, with our conclusion, food waste is and will continue to be a world issue if we don't take action. This issue is just as important as global warming, biodiversity, and pollution. Its impacts on world economics and the environment are not only eye-opening, but threatening. Tons of food, literally tons of millions of food is wasted every day, especially through grocery stores. Especially when there are people starving and even dying of starvation. So I want to leave you with this one final thought. What can I do today to lessen the impact of my life tomorrow? Thank you.